Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our podcast, A While Back. Today, we have my wife, Marty. We're going to ask her a few questions, and we're going to get some interesting answers out of her on a lot of these questions. I'm really interested to see how she's going to answer some of them. Marty has always been 100% honest, no matter what the subject is, so these will be unique and impromptu answers. And in all full disclosure for everyone to understand, on every person that is interviewed here on the set, they have no idea of the questions that are coming. Marty has no idea of the questions she's getting today either, just to be completely fair about it. But today, I want to make sure that Marty will understand the meaning of the title. The title is Forever's as Far as I'll Go. So, Marty, we'll talk about that in a second. You can tell them what that means, all right?
Forever as far as I'll go.
Forever's as far as I'll go. All right. So now, this intro is easy because I'm going to let Marty do a brief one, but for me, it's very simple. She is, and I'm maybe a little bit biased, but she is the most beautiful, intelligent, generous, compassionate person I have ever known in my life. And I was blessed when God made her my soulmate. And I couldn't have asked for a better woman on the planet to accompany me through the rest of my life.
Oh,
all right. Now, with that being said, Marty, you want to go on and introduce yourself real quick?
Okay. I'm Marty. I'm your wife. We've been married 27 years. And we have two children, Zachary and Kyle. Zachary lives in Arkansas and Kyle lives in Dallas. Kyle's in college. I'm originally from Corpus Christi, Texas. I am the youngest of four. I have two older brothers and a sister. And I think, what else?
All right, great. All right, no, that's perfect.
I don't know what else to say.
So now the very first question is, and I'm confident you'll probably remember the exact place, but do you remember when the first time was that we met each other?
Mm-hmm.
And where was that at? What the situation was, if you can remember, and what was your very first impression?
Okay. Wow. You really didn't. I really didn't know any of the questions. So this is I'm a little nervous.
There's no reason to be.
I know. The very first time I met you,
yes.
I laid eyes on you. We were in college, and we went to Corpus Christi State University, which is now Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And the campus is completely different back then than it is today.
Absolutely,
it was
right.
Tiny. And so I was a biology major, and so were you. And I had just made a few friends. I just moved from San Antonio back to Corpus to go to college. And that's probably the best thing I ever did, because if I hadn't moved back to Corpus, I would not have met you.
Right.
But we were in the science building, and I remember sitting with one of my girlfriends, and the tables were those big spool tables that they have wiring, telephone.
They were repurposed, right?
And I remember you and Spence walking through the doors,
Right.
and you walking straight in, and I thought, oh wow.
Well, and that was a compliment, I'm sure.
Yes.
But she's dead on perfect. That's exactly the very first time we laid eyes on each other.
Yep.
And people tell you stories about love at first sight. I experienced it personally the minute I opened that door and I saw her sitting at that table. I am not even coming close to in serving it justice when I say that I literally knew when I saw her look up that this was the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And I hadn't even talked to her yet. I happened to have been lucky enough to know the friend that she was sitting next to. So eventually, a few days had passed, I did get to know her name. I realized that we were basically going to be in the same courses, a few of the same classes. And at that point in time, I did not look back. I knew what I was going to be doing as far as hoping to get a date with you, and we were going to see where that would lead from then on. But the minute you and I talked to each other, I think that we both knew something was spectacular about to happen. So, all right. So can you, or do you remember the very first date that we went on?
Wow. Jeez. A date date?
Date.
Like a real
That's
date?
right,
Not
a
like
date
when
date.
we went to lunch with
No,
all
no,
the
no, no,
friends.
not with everybody.
Was that when we went to a party?
Yes, that's
we
correct.
went to Rockport. We went to a party in Rockport. One of our classmates he lived there.
Right.
And his parents had a house in Rockport, so that's where he lived. And we all went over there, and that was our very first.
That was the very
date.
first date. Absolutely, that's right. I still remember that like it was yesterday. So, all right.
So I was 20 when I met you.
Right.
I was 20 years old when I met you. So we're talking. I can't
Don't
believe-
date yourself.
I know I'm not, but I just the memories are like it was yesterday.
It was exactly.
They're
So,
clear.
and I, to be honest with you, I can still remember that we were out on the patio overlooking because it was right against the canal on the water, and that's where we started talking. Now, when did you first realize that it was true love?
When did I first realize?
Yes.
I think when I realized I missed you when I wasn't talking to you. If I didn't talk to you, we talked every day on the phone.
Sometimes till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes. And back then there's no cell phones.
No, these were landlines.
These
right.
were landlines with the little cords. In fact, I still have the phone I had.
Uh-huh.
I still had. It's the same phone on Stranger Things, believe it or not. If you watch that show, but I realized if I missed a day not talking to you.
Yeah, because
I think
I was working at the same time I was going to college too.
Yes.
And then the minute I got off work, the first thing I would do is come home and
Call.
give you a call. Right, exactly.
And there's no texting, so
No, there was no
I
such thing
think
as that.
when I realized when I look forward to talking to you every day and
Yeah,
seeing you and spending time with you and you coming over to the house.
absolutely. Absolutely. So now, Dad, this one's for you.
Yeah.
So the very first time I brought Marty out here, what were your first impressions of Marty?
Oh, I don't know. I think we loved Marty right off the bat. She had a great person. She's got a great personality, and I think Mom and I both loved her right off the bat.
Oh.
And we accepted her. And we had you part of our family ever since, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, one of the things that I remember Dad telling me when I had first told him that I was going to marry you, that I was going to ask you to marry me. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. One of the very first things that Dad brought up was the fact that you came from a wealthy family. And Dad was a little concerned that maybe I wouldn't be able to keep you in the kind of luxury you were used to. So I told him, no, I was good. So, yeah, I've done my best.
Oh, okay.
I've done my
He's done
best.
great.
Yes, yes. But
That's
that was
funny.
one of the things that I
That's
remember
funny.
Dad bringing up to me. So, now, what was your first impressions of both Mom and Dad? I know in the previous episode that we just did, you reminded me of the fact that, I kept telling you the entire time that she wasn't my real mom. She was my stepmom. And then you became a little bit intimidated when you met her and she told you that, no, I was making it up.
Uh-huh.
But what was also your first impression of Dad? Because you thought he had a whole bunch of wives.
Well, yes, but I don't know. I just had I got such a kick out of you two.
Oh.
I mean, just so down to earth and so just kicked back and relaxed and everything. And I loved your family dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your you would bring me here for the weekend.
Right.
I think back then, Stephen, he may have been in high school.
Yeah.
He may have been ending
Senior.
high school and going to college.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Brenda was, I think, she wasn't even, no, we were still friends before we started dating
Right.
when Brenda got married. And so Brenda was a newlywed. Brian was still here, and I just loved coming over here, and everyone would be here. And your aunts and uncles and your
Yes,
cousins and
absolutely.
all of you were, playing volleyball right here in the field. And I do not come from an athletic family. I think the only sport I could play was badminton, and that was because.
But you excelled at other things. You were a great piano
Yes,
player.
well, I didn't play sports, and I wasn't athletic. But
Right,
yes, I did play the piano. I played the violin. I played the violin and the flute, and so that's where I was. Those were my gifts.
Right.
But I remember sitting out because I was too afraid to play volleyball. But it was
Oh,
so
I
much fun
remember that,
watching. It was fun watching
was fun.
everyone,
Absolutely.
and you always barbecued, and I don't know. I just loved your family. I loved both sides of the family, the Mark
Right.
side and the Pekar side, and everyone on both sides just accepted me. And to this day,
And they all gave you the same advice. Make sure you have plenty of patience.
Patience and
Right.
and your mom told me I couldn't give you back.
That's right. I think she still uses that to this
She
day.
still says that.
Yeah, even after 27 years. So, all right. So now the past 27 years have essentially flown by. I mean, we still all remember when the boys were little, and now Zachary's in Arkansas, Kyle's in Dallas. So it just seems like a blur all of a sudden. But what are some of your best memories, your most cherished memories over the past 27 years? Besides the birth of the boys, what else do you see as cherished memories that you know you will never forget?
Things, I don't know. Every holiday is always a cherished memory.
Right.
But there's some funny stories in between. Do you remember the time that, I hope Sophia and Tyler aren't going to watch this, but do you remember the time when Kyle I think was 5 years old?
Yes.
And he picked our lock?
Exactly.
It was Christmas Eve, and I was wrapping all their Christmas presents. And
Right. And it just so happened when he came in, what was his face?
yeah, well, I remember saying, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "No." And I had all the so one of our traditions
Right.
is the gift wrap from Santa Claus was always 2 different times, but it was the same thing. And so I had, Zachary's things all wrapped in his wrapping paper, and then I had Kyle's wrapped, or I was just starting Kyle's, and I hear the little click, and I asked you if you heard that noise, and you said no. And the next thing we know, the door's open, and Kyle just looks, and he goes, "Whoa." And I think you got up and carried him to his room, and I think I cried for the next 2 hours because 5-year-old Kyle has just seen all the presents that Santa Claus is bringing to him. And just by luck, I had another set of gift wrap, so I unwrapped everything and I rewrapped everything.
Right.
And
because he shocked us that we had no idea that he was there. All of a sudden, there he comes in.
Picked the lock.
And his mouth dropped, and he goes, "Whoa!" And I still can picture his face doing it.
So now we can laugh.
Right. Oh, we laughed. We didn't laugh then. But once we closed the door, you were crying because you were so devastated.
And it was late. It was already like 10 or 11.
It was. But remember, those were the gifts from you and I to the boys, right? Yeah. Because they still had their separate Santa Claus gifts coming.
Yes,
right.
They had a lot.
Absolutely.
But every Christmas was always fun. And
it was.
And we would, so this part of my cherished memories.
Yes.
Christmas is always a fun time.
Right.
And every, before we went to Mass or before we went to drive and look at Christmas lights, you would get the boys, put them in the car, and I would grab all the presents and put them under the tree and get those.
The presents from us. That's correct. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that way they were ready to go when we got home.
So when they got home, they saw all the presents from us under the tree, and they were ready to go. They want to start opening them up right away.
Yes, I love that. And, and I love the times when the boys were in sports.
Right.
And we'd go watch,
It was always a lot
games,
of fun.
And field trips, those are always good, cherished memories.
They were.
Always made it a point. We both did.
Absolutely.
To go to everything that they were participating in,
right.
Especially when they were in high school. And
so,
we knew it was coming to an end.
So we talked about the fondest memories, but what about some of the memories that we have that were extremely difficult to deal with? So the one that comes to mind the most is, I think we had mentioned in an episode of quite a while back, but the one was with, after Kyle he wasn't even, but maybe 4 months old, and we found out, 2 months, and we had found out about his kidney issue that he had.
Oh, yeah.
So that one was so difficult because literally he spent over a month in the pediatric ward of the hospital. Mm-hmm. And that was essentially having to give him steroids, keep him on special medication, just to get his kidneys to develop. That was probably the hardest struggle I think that we had in our marriage over the 27 years.
I think that was the hardest.
It was, absolutely, because we had no idea where it was going to turn. And it was just through solid prayer, nonstop begging, pleading, and praying that the good Lord graced us with. Exactly. With him being completely normal.
Really,
that was the toughest time by far. Absolutely. Now, what advice do you have for newlyweds? Because, like I had brought up with Grandpa and Grandma in one of the earlier episodes, millennials, Generation Z, they have a whole different set of obstacles in their ways, trying to derail any kind of relationships that they have. So what advice do you have for them? Because going forward, for instance, it's so difficult to have one-on-one conversations with people when somebody's on a phone texting, or if they're getting ready to get on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, all those kind of things. What advice do you have? Because we want to make sure that this is the stuff we've already told Zachary and Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
But what we want to do is we want to talk about the advice you have to keep people more focused on the person they're talking to, on their, could be potentially fiance.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of advice do you have for that?
Put the phone down. I
Number
think
one.
nowadays, well, I don't know for sure if this is true, but I feel like the kids today, they don't know how to talk to each other because they're so used to just texting that when they're together face to face, they don't know where to start a conversation. So put the phone down and talk. Spend time together. Do it old school like what we did.
Exactly.
Face to face and conversations. It makes me smile and giggle and laugh a little bit when we talk about communication.
Oh, okay. Well, tell them why.
Because the first test I ever failed. I saw one of the episodes, and you kind of blamed yourself.
I did. Yeah.
I failed that test too.
Yeah. Right.
And if people who know me know that I was always the type of person. I wanted to make that A.
Right.
And I wanted everything to be perfect, and I'm still that way. So when we went to the marriage encounter classes, and we took that test, that it was a compatibility personality type test, and oh my gosh, we felt so bad that the priest called us to the office, and we had to sit down with him separately at first, and then together, and then of course he was like, you know what, that's just, you guys are, whatever you are doing is working for you.
Absolutely.
And
right.
so we were able to, he passed us with our oral examination and gave us the blessing to get married.
Yeah, because we did horrible on that part.
Oh my gosh, the communication. I don't know what we did, and I don't remember what the questions were, but I just remember that it was bad enough for him to go, hey.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I think
But look
communication is bad. It's
Me
hard
too.
on anybody.
Yeah.
I know communication is hard for me too. It's a lot easier for a grandma than for me, but communication is hard for me to work on.
Yeah.
So,
and I need a lot of work on that.
I don't know. Whatever you're doing is working. I mean, you've been married 15 years.
Right.
And I think what we do communicate. We do talk.
Oh, we do a lot, yeah. Some more than others, to say
I
the
do
least.
like to talk. I take after my mother.
So do you have any questions for Marty?
No, the only thing I was going to ask you, like I asked him, after your children were born, did your life more or less change any, or it did, right?
Yes. Yes, it
changed
did.
a lot,
It changed a lot. We had Zachary pretty quick.
Right.
And I wouldn't have changed. I wouldn't go back and change anything.
No, because he was a honeymoon
sure.
baby,
Yeah,
so
he was a honeymoon
literally
baby.
Oh, he
we had a
was-
family started
Oh,
9 months later. Right?
Yeah, and your grandmother, your mom, is the one who.
That's right.
I had never heard that term, and Grandma Peckar was the one that said, "Oh, Zachary's a honeymoon baby." And
Yep. That was the very first time I remember hearing it
Yeah.
too
Oh,
from her.
really?
Yes.
Yes, she got a big kick out of that, and I'm so glad that your parents were around with Zachary.
Yeah.
We have pictures of Zachary with them.
Yeah.
And
So now that you mention that, Grandpa Peckar. Grandpa Peckar had a very funny way he would say your name. What would Grandpa Peckar call you?
he couldn't call me Marty. He called me Marcy. So I was Marcy, and I think
Marcy.
he didn't have his teeth, right?
No, I don't
He was
think so.
missing
Not
teeth.
to the end.
Oh, but he was such a great
Yeah.
man. He was so much fun when we go visit.
He was. The stories he would tell were
And
phenomenal.
the food.
It was. Oh, and Grandma's cooking was too.
Oh my
You know
gosh!
that
And I
too.
remember sitting at the table, and you're sitting next to me, and Grandpa Peckar would put more food on my plate. And
Yep.
Here I am, and I'd hand it to you. And you would eat it
Absolutely.
because I could not. I couldn't eat that much.
But exactly, because Grandma would cook for 12 people, even when there was maybe 2 or 3 in a room. So,
So
all
many
right.
times.
so now, what advice do you have specifically for husbands out there? Because you see it, of course, from the wife point of view. But what kind of advice would you give husbands? Because there are a lot of husbands out there that are not nearly as romantic and affectionate
Oh,
and sensitive as your husband. So what kind of advice would you give them to help them be more like your
Thank you.
husband?
Don't forget any holidays. Don't forget your anniversary or Valentine's Day. Do you know what? Going back though, that last question, I
Yes.
never did give advice
No.
to the millennials and the young kids
So
today.
what kind of advice?
And it just slipped my mind.
Well, one of the things I always tell them is you have to be best friends.
That's what it was.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And I've
good.
always told, and I told Zachary this, and I told Jarrett when
Yes.
he lived with us, I would tell him,
Yes,
if you cannot be friends with that person first, then it's not going to last.
absolutely.
If you can't stand to be around them,
Well,
you can't build a relationship on that.
if you literally don't want to spend all your waking hours with that person, you
Yeah.
probably should just cut your ties and go. You want to be best friends no matter what
Yeah.
starting out. Once you're best friends, then you can start taking it to the next level.
And that's
That's
how we
all right.
started.
Exactly, that's the way we
started
started.
out as friends, and then we became best friends.
That's
and
right.
It just grew from there.
Absolutely. So,
And you're still my best friend.
in your mind, you know that. So, any questions that you might have for Grandpa? You've been in all the episodes. You've seen all the episodes.
Yes.
So, did you have anything that you could think of for Grandpa?
Well, you know, I love to watch old movies. I love the movies from the 50s and the 60s, and the music and the way they dressed. And so I'm always wondering, like, I loved the Four Seasons.
Oh, the force.
I love, all their music. And, I saw Jersey Boys, which is, it uses their music, but it's about the actual group. But what was your favorite? What kind of music did you listen to besides Johnny Cash?
No.
That's
Our
good.
favorite music was, polkas and waltzes and then country and western music. That's what we were brought
That's
up
what
on. Yeah.
Which was
Country
all
and
good
western.
too.
Yeah, that was all good because
So you had
we had a lot of different, great country and music artists and also polka and waltzes bands. There were a lot of them. I mean, there were a bunch of them that were in South Texas, like Joe Patek, the Krennic Arts, and there's so many of them. I don't want to even name them all.
Yeah, so that's what he grew up on. And then,
Yeah.
of course, Johnny Cash came along later. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's when, I guess, Johnny Cash was your favorite.
in my
Sorry. Did you go
high
to
school years.
Were there dances and did y'all
Oh
go to
yeah.
dances?
Now
and...
one thing about our dances, we had dances, but they were out on they were about our closest dance hall, which was an open pavilion, and all that it was concrete floor, and you danced on a concrete floor. Everything was open. You didn't have any roof or anything above it. But that was over there at Pettigrews Dance Hall, which was in.
That's in Shiner. Right?
Yeah.
And you took Grandma to these dances too?
No,
or is this
Grandma
before
didn't go to
Grandma?
those dances.
Oh, this
way
was before
her
Grandma.
time.
Oh.
That was way
Oh,
before her time. That was when I was still
really?
before high school.
What were those girls' names?
Oh,
No,
I don't
no,
know.
no, don't go there. Don't go there. That's
Well, we'll find out
But
later.
that was,
We can ask Grandma.
That was, and we had a American Legion Hall there,
Yeah.
I think, which is now a KC Hall. But it was different dance halls all around there.
Yes, absolutely. there was.
Boston, that's all. It was a bunch of them.
All right, good. So, did you have anything else for Marty? Any other questions? Anything
No,
for
I
Marty?
don't think I'm
All right. So, we're gonna be coming to the end of the episode. We're gonna be winding it down here in a minute. Is there anything else that you wanted to say? Any other memories that you have of the few times that you came out here before we were married? Do you, and you probably don't remember, but do you remember that when we would walk around the place out here
I do.
and you would get so hot so quick and you literally had to go inside?
It was hot.
And that's the next thing I was going to bring up. So, Mom was a little bit stingy with the AC, but when she knew that you would be here, she turned it on for a little bit. Yeah, exactly.
So it's
But that
funny.
was a weekend episode.
Oh, it was a weekend.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's-
Right.
That's funny. Okay, so I grew up in the city.
Right.
I was a
It was
city
gonna
girl.
be
and-
different.
Yeah, so we had we used our air conditioner every day.
Oh, yeah, every day, right.
And the other funny thing is, we had 4 channels, for TV to watch. And I
Right.
think you had what, 1 or 2?
Right.
We had 4
right.
channels. We had ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS.
Right.
And when I was about 10 years old, my mom really wanted cable. And my dad said no. My dad grew up in the country too, and he had told her no. So my mother gave him cable for Father's Day,
Oh my God.
so he couldn't tell her no. And I remember it was 13 channels.
Oh, 13.
It was 13
Wow.
channels,
Wow.
and then I think the next year HBO was out.
Right.
And then MTV came out, and that was, so I grew up that way. I didn't grow up in the country
That's
and
right.
playing outside,
Right.
and yeah, so the heat got to me pretty quick.
Right, I know it did. Right.
And, but I did enjoy a lot of TV shows. That
No.
A lot of stuff that we didn't get to
Yeah,
see
you
because
didn't.
we only
Right,
had 2 channels out
right.
here.
I know we're
so-
watching. We watch a lot of YouTube now, and we watch old shows. And I'll say, "Oh, did you see that when we were young?" And
Nope, don't know what you're talking about because I never saw it. So
Donnie and Marie. Nope.
I remember a little bit. I know the names, but basically
Yeah.
that's about it. So, all right, just right off the bat because we're gonna be ending it now. But God could not have made a more perfect soulmate for me, and I am so looking forward to the next 27 years with you. So,
I feel the same way.
mwah.
So where do you see us in the next 5 to 10 years?
The next 5 to 10? Well, we've already discussed what our plan is and what
Yes.
we're going to be purchasing. So we will be in another location in the next 5 to years or so. We are going to have a bigger amount of property,
Mhm.
and the boys will also be a very important part of that.
Yes.
Because as you know, right now, Zachary and I are both looking for certain things, and
Yes.
with his career taking off, he's just an additional asset for us now.
Yes.
Thank goodness. And then when Kyle takes off after he graduates,
Oh, right.
he'll also be in on it with us too. So,
That'll be fun.
yeah, we
I
are
look
looking
forward to that.
it.
I look forward to the
You and I
next
both do.
50,
Yeah.
60, 70,
Absolutely,
80 years.
it's just going to
There
be
you go.
phenomenal.
Yes.
The only thing I'm not looking forward to are grandkids because I don't want to be called grandpa. No offense.
Oh.
No offense, but I don't want to be called
Oh,
grandpa.
you'll be grandpa.
Oh yeah.
What do you want to
So-
be called?
I don't want to be called anything because I don't want to have any grandkids around me just yet. I'm not quite ready
Well,
for
the
it
boys
yet.
are still young. The boys are still young.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right. That's right. So.
So
All
that'll
right.
be fun. I look forward to it.
Not grandpa, but I am looking forward to all the rest that's coming down the pipeline. So, all right. Well, thank you, Marty. You were a phenomenal
Yeah.
guest. You did an outstanding
Great job.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
job.
Especially because I had no idea what you were gonna.
I had, like I said.
And the title, if anyone's,
Oh, I'm glad you
wondering.
brought that up. Yes,
that was the first dance to our wedding. That was the song we danced to.
that's right. That was the very first song that
And
we
our
danced
wedding
to.
was fun, and that should be another episode. 'Cause
Oh well,
Oh,
we
that's
could do that
right.
real quick. So one of the things about our reception afterwards was everybody still talks about the fact that Grandpa was so limber and inebriated at that point that Grandpa was on the table
Yeah.
dancing.
and then I went like that.
Shut up.
Grandpa doesn't want anybody to remember that, but we do.
We gotta get those VHS cassettes converted to.
We have to get that converted to DVD because that would be
Yes.
so funny.
It was a beautiful, fun, huge.
It was a
wedding.
huge
Huge.
wedding.
Okay, that's enough.
Absolutely.
Episode's over.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you something
No,
else.
not yet. It was at the American Bank Center.
Yes.
I think it's called Selena Auditorium at the time,
No,
right?
it
No?
was no, it wasn't even called either of those things. It was Bayfront Auditorium.
Bayfront.
Yeah,
That's
it
right.
was
That's what it was
Bayfront,
called. So anyway, we had the whole downstairs practically. It was a
It was one of the
huge
convention
one.
rooms.
Yes, it was big.
And we had 5-card draw play,
We had a local band that turned
Yeah,
out to be
5-card
outstanding.
draw.
5-card draw. It was very
country
good.
band.
Your brother Mike was in it because he jumped on stage with his violin.
Yeah, because my family, I come from musicians. My brother plays, my sister-in-law plays.
Absolutely.
Both my brothers played.
That's
yeah,
right.
So,
So,
yeah,
but
that was fun.
we could talk about that in a whole other
That's another
episode.
episode.
Absolutely. We can get Grandma on here for that one too because
Yes.
Grandma will have memories as well. So, all right, great. Dan, what would you like to say?
Let me tell you something else.